Hello everyone and welcome to the channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. In today's video we are going to be crafting 250 breach rings that we obtained from the breach boss Zesht in our last video. Before we get started, there are a few things I wish to mention to everyone watching. Number one, I am by no means a professional crafter. I don't have thousands of hours of crafting experience, making mirror tier items every league, obscene amounts of currency. This particular league is definitely an outlier for me, and is by far the richest I've ever been in my entire Path of Exile experience. Number two, just so everyone knows, the goal of bulk crafting breach rings is not to, hit it big and get that one ring that sells for 250 divines, makes you instantly rich. When I originally was crafting breach rings much earlier in the league, I sold bulk amounts of rings for 1 to 2 divines each to gain a majority of the wealth that I made. Striking it big and landing like an insane ring is something that is very uncommon unless you spend a significant amount of currency to get to that point, so that is not the goal of this video. Numero Trace. Breach ring crafting has a lot of, how do I say it, learn as you go. Off the bats, nobody really knows everything when it pertains to crafting, and the best learning experience for crafting any item is the crafting itself. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the easier it is for you to see good combinations and good modifiers on items. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of explaining of that in the video, but in order to learn that best, it's recommended that you just do it yourself. The fourth thing is that this particular crafting method is far less lucrative than it was a month or two ago. The league is well into its third month, and at this point in time, the economy is so flooded with breach rings that unless you have the best of the best or a really good ring, it's going to be kind of difficult to sell your breach rings. A breach ring that might have sold for a divine or 2 months ago might only be worth 100 or 200x at this point in time, so please keep that in mind. Alright, so the last thing I want to say is to check out the description. If this video interests you, and this is something you may want to do in the future, I'm going to have some great links down there to some YouTube videos and some websites that you can use to get started on your breach ring crafting journey. Alright, so before we get started, a few things I want to explain about how the process is going to happen. The first thing we are going to do is take our Essence of the Infinite and slam every single one of these 250 breach rings with one to get an attributes roll. We are going to then set aside every ring that rolls with the highest tier attributes roll possible for dexterity, intelligence, and strength. That is tier 9, and for all attributes, it's tier 4. From there, we are going to take the Orb of Augmentation and then slam all the rings with that as well, setting aside rings that roll with good prefixes. The next thing that we are going to do is take every single ring that rolled with a high tier attribute roll and slam it with a greater Essence of the Infinite, turning into a rare item with an additional attribute modifier. After that, we're going to take every other ring, including the ones that rolled with good prefixes, and slam them with the Regal Orb, because they're secondary. We want to focus on the ones that rolled with a high tier attribute. From there, our goal is to exalt the rest of the rings, or if we get a really good base, just sell it as is. And then if we need to, use Chaos Orbs to try to roll additional high tier modifiers on rings that are bricked or not very good. And that is the process. That's the entire thing. That's how I'm planning on crafting breach rings. Alright, with all that being said, we're going to get started into crafting the rings. I will see you guys in a second after I have slammed every single one of these rings with the Essence of the Infinite and set them aside based on tier. Alright, I got the rings organized in the tab, and I want to give a really quick disclaimer. I got incredibly lucky. This is a very large amount of rings that rolled with the highest tier attribute affix. Same thing down here with the all attributes. Very above rate. So if you were to copy this and do 250 on your own, I wouldn't expect you to see as many as I got. I got very, very lucky. The second column here is the second tier attribute rolls. So 30, 29, and 28. And down here we have the 10, 9, and 8 to all attributes. Also a tier 2 roll. Over here we have all the other rings that rolled with various rolls. A +7 to intelligence is not good, but some of these other ones, like +26 to dexterity, is still a decent roll, just not the ones that I wanted to focus on. These are the rings that have the highest chance of making you the most money. Alright, the next thing to do is to augment, and then finish the craft, and then at the very end, we're going to use our catalyst to bolster the modifiers on the ring, and hopefully be able to sell them for several divines. We will see. Alright, we have augmented every single ring. As you can see, every ring here has 2 modifiers on it, and I was hovering over some of these just to kind of see if any of them rolled really good, and I immediately noticed a few on the right column here. The plus 33 to dexterity and 185 mana, and there happens to be another plus 33 to dexterity with 184 mana. 184 mana is pretty close to the top tier roll you can possibly get on that ring. And just for an example as to how valuable this ring already is, if we look up these two modifiers, the only thing we have on the trade website right now is approximately 2 divines. It's been there for a day, so, you know, people may be expecting to buy it for 1 divine or something, but this is already a ring that we have profited on. It was that simple. We haven't even given it the greater essence of the infinite treatment yet. So if we get another really good roll, like another high tier attribute, this could be a very valuable ring. And that could be the case for several of these. That's where the money can come from. Those 1, 2, 3 divine rings you can get really lucky on that build up over time. So we're going to go ahead and slam the greater essence of the infinite, and I'll be back in a second. All right, we have slammed all of our highest tier attribute rings with the greater essence of the infinite, and some of these have some pretty decent rolls. 31 to dexterity, 29 to intelligence, 16% increased rarity of items found. Those are all 3 good rolls. The rarity of items found is a little bit low, but this is still a valuable ring. The ones I want to point out at the bottom here are the ones that rolled the best. And the 2 in particular that I want to single out are these guys, who I have already used the attribute modifier's catalyst on. If we use our little price checking tool, which I will have linked in the description, to check the base level of these rings, you can see that this ring is 1 divine, maybe 2 divines, maybe 3 divines. But if we take a look at the actual rolls, which are 16% to all attributes and 48% to dexterity, with the highest tier lightning roll, this ring scales in price quite a bit. 20 divines, 99 divines, 230 divines. Keep in mind this is not a fully fleshed out ring, but it's a base. This is a great example of a ring that I can probably sell for 8 to 10 divines as it sits, and someone will start crafting on it. I guarantee if I made this tab public and sold these things, this ring would sell within minutes. Same thing with this ring. If we check the base stats on it, you're seeing 1 divine, 1 divine. This is 5 chaos orbs. That's probably unrealistic. It's worth a little bit more than that, but not a super expensive ring. If we check, however, the attribute rolls after we use the catalyst, 7 divines, 8 divines, 15 divines. The total investment for these 2 rings is like 3 divines, and we have profited at least 10 to 15. And that's how you do it. That's how you craft breach rings and make profit. All right, with that little aside for our special little breach rings here that are incredibly profitable already, I am going to go to the next step of the crafting process, and that is to slam the remainder of these rings with Regal orbs. I'll be back in just a second once that's done. All right, so we have regaled everything, and I know the tab looks like an absolute mess. I promise there is a method to my madness. All the rings on the left side here are the ones that did not roll the best from the original Essence of the Infinite. So what I'm going to do now is Exalt Slam all of them, go back through them really quick and see if there were any redeeming qualities from the Exalt Slam. If there is something like maybe a super high tier attribute of some type that holds quite a bit of value, I may use a Chaos or 2, or I may use a Catalyst to try to sell those rings, but a majority of these are going to be put in a 1 divine dump tab. So that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so I went ahead and went through all those rings on the left side, threw them in a 1 divine dump tab, pulled some of them out that have some potentially intrinsic value holders. So for example, on this ring, if you look at this ring, the only highest tier attribute that's on there is lightning damage. It's actually a perfect lightning damage. But if we look at the current ring as it sits, it's not going to be worth a lot of money, maybe 2 or 3 divines after Exalt Slamming. But again, this is where your catalysts come in. So if we increase this guy to 35, increase this guy to like 46, and then roll the top tier lightning damage and rarity of items found on there, we're looking at a potentially much more valuable ring. Now, you would have to, compare your ring to rings on the trade website. I'm not saying this ring is 10 divines, but it's probably around, the 5 to 10 divine range. So this is a ring that originally started out not super good. It's Exalt Slammed to at least be somewhat better, and with some catalyst could be worth a few pretty pennies. So that's kind of what you're looking for. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish crafting every single one of these rings. I'm going to get back to you guys in just a few minutes, or I guess in a few seconds for you guys, after I've crafted these rings, and I'll get you with the final rings that we're going to sell for multiple divines, and the rest of them we're going to throw in the 1 divine dump tab. I'll be back in just a second. All right, we are back, everyone, and I am recovering from a cold that stole my voice, so I apologize if I sound any different. I am doing my best to not, but before we get into all of these rings that we have crafted and are deciding to keep, we do have a One Divine dump tab where I threw all of the worst rings in, just hoping that someone will come along and buy them. And these are all of our really, really good rings that we're going to sell for multiple divines each. But before we look at those, I want to show you guys the God ring. This ring rolled so incredibly well, I cannot believe it. We are going to make an absolute buttload of money on this ring. Are you ready to see it? Please like and subscribe. Sorry about that. I joke and I kid and I kid and I joke, but we are back with the actual best rings that we rolled. These are all rings that we're going to sell for multiple divines, and I want you guys to keep in mind that I did overprice quite a bit of these rings, and it's because we are at the end of the league and people have the most money they've ever had, and if someone wants to buy an upgrade, they are willing to spend the money. So the rings on the right are the absolute best rolls that we had. And coincidentally, that quote, God ring is actually the best rolled ring that we have, so we'll get to that in a second. But starting from the top here, we have 20 divines, 20 divines, 20 divines, 25. These are all going to be north of 20 divines each. 30, 30, 40, 40, 40, 50, and quote, the God ring, the best one that we had that rolled after all this crafting is this guy right here with triple really high attribute rolls and 2 flat. Unfortunately, that maximum life is a bit of a bummer. If it were another flat damage or potentially a high mana, this would be an incredibly valuable ring, but it's not. We could whittle over and over and try to get rid of that, but I'm not going to go into that, and that's just unnecessary waste of currency. The rest of these rings over here are multiple divines apiece, anywhere from 3, going up to 5, going up to 7, up to 10, up to 15. And again, a lot of these rings are going to be overpriced. We actually did have another one over here that we already sold before I even had a chance to film this segment, but we are going to make some money. Ultimately, this was profitable for us, so I am happy to see that. I do want to show you guys the numbers, so I'm going to get to those in just 1 second. All right now you are probably asking yourself, Nick, how much money did you make? Well, we're going to get into that right now. So if we look at the cost for everything, the breach rings being 250 in total that we crafted at 60 being 10 divines is 42 divines. I want you guys to keep in mind that we did not pay for these rings. They were from the breach boss, but if you were to do it yourself, that's approximately what it would cost you. 33,167 exalted at the current rate of 1 to almost 800, which is insane. If we look at the items that we used to actually craft the rings, the catalyst, the infinite essence we used to slam on them originally, the greater essence, and the slamming currency, which consists of exalted orbs and chaos, that brings our total between these to 85, and our grand total cost to 127 divines, or 93,377 exalted. All right, but what about the profit? If we sell all the rings in that good ring tab for what they are listed for, we will sell them for 646 divine orbs, which is a profit of 519. Keep in mind, once again, that I did overprice a lot of those rings. I'm hoping I can get what I listed them for. I will slowly drop them over time, but I'm in no rush to sell the rings. It's the end of the league. I have plenty of currency, and I don't need to get them out of my tabs to clear space for anything else. So I'm going to keep them listed at the current price for at least a few days. If I decide that I want to sell them quicker, I can drop the price down by about a third per item and get 215 divines, totaling a divine profit of 88. If we keep in mind that we did the breach boss on top of this, and we take the profit from that video, we sell the remaining 1,750 breach rings that we did not craft, and these, the divine profit from the breach boss is in the 300 to 400 range at the absolute minimum. So that is super, super awesome. I'm still not going to do that grind again. That was incredibly monotonous. But overall, we profited. I'm super happy to have done that. I apologize for the time it took to get this video out. And the last thing I want to say is, if you like the video, please leave a like. Feel free to comment down below. I read every single one. And if you feel so obliged, leave a subscription as well. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.